Okay, hello once again, Internet. Welcome to what will be my first paracord tutorial, or maybe my first attempt at a paracord tutorial. I've never done something like this before, but we'll see how it goes. This is a little something I came up with the other day, which really is just a modified version of the Hex Nut paracord bracelet from the Bored Paracord YouTube channel. Only on this one we will be using washers instead of hex nuts, and I will link to that original video in the description. If you're into paracord and you don't know about the Bored Paracord YouTube channel, then shame on you, seriously. But yeah, one other difference with mine is also we're running double cow's hitches at each end rather than the single cow's hitch and Solomon knot on the original as shown by Bored Paracord. And the reason for that is I like to use larger buckles. This is a 1-inch buckle that I'm using on this, and I just like larger buckles for a few different reasons. They're just easier to get to and unsnap, and to me they seem less grabby, less pinchy. They don't grab your skin as much. So I knotted mine differently at the ends so that it would fit a larger buckle. And really that's the only difference other than the use of washers, other than hex nuts. Now I will put the camera up higher so we can see my jig here, and I will hopefully explain this in such a way that makes sense. This is just standard black 550 cord. It's accented by kind of a neon green glow-in-the-dark cord. And I'm running about 12 or 13 feet of 550 cord on my jig. You probably don't need that much, but it's better to have some slack. It's better to have a little bit too much than not enough. And then the only glow-in-the-dark cord I really have left is this little scrap that I wasn't using for anything, so hopefully this will be enough for the tutorial. If not, I can probably use a different color as the accent at the end of the video. This is going to go across here. That should be enough. I don't know if there's enough slack to use the fids, but let's go ahead and get into how to actually make this. Okay, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video that these washers are 5/16, or excuse me, 5/8 of an inch for the outer diameter, and then the inner diameter is going to be 5/16 of an inch. And it doesn't really matter what size washers you use as long as the inside obviously is wide enough that two runs of 550 cord can pass through it. And again, I'm tying this on a 2-strand cord with a double cow's hitch at either end. If you don't know how to tie this, look for another link in the description, and that will be to the Weavers of Eternity video on how to tie this 2-strand cord if you don't know how to do that. So without further delay, so let's go ahead and start tying this. And what I'm going to do is do a simple Solomon knot to start off, and I'll show you why in just a second. Just like so. So my strand on the right is coming over the top, and then my strand on the left is going underneath and coming up through my right strand. And we're going to tighten this down like so. Just a single, simple Solomon knot. And then we can put on our first washer. The reason for the Solomon knot is when the washer goes on, it's going to be sort of suspended between two loops, and the washer is going to want to rock back and forth like this, and so it doesn't flip over the wrong way. That Solomon knot is there, and the edge of that washer just sort of rests on that first Solomon knot. and then from there the washers will overlap at the edges and sort of hold each other in place. And then when we get to the other end here, we'll be tying another Solomon knot to finish it all off, but I better not get too far ahead of myself here. So we got our first washer. Again, this will be basically the same as making the Hex Nut bracelet from the Bored Paracord YouTube channel. And just like when you bring these strands up and through the bottom on either side, like so, this is where you would be putting on your Hex Nut if you were following the Bored Paracord tutorial. So now, this is where we are going to be threading on our washers. Every time the cords loop over and come back up from underneath, we will be putting on a washer just like so. Make sure the strands don't flip around on you. Make sure your left strand always comes up and out to the left, and the right obviously up and out to the right. And you'll notice I didn't tighten these loops down. You want to keep these open so that the cord can pass back out to the sides. We'll go ahead and do that on both the left and right sides. Oops. Like so. And then you want the washer up here, where the edge of it is just resting on that first Solomon knot. And if this is tricky to see, I do apologize, but I'm going to hold that washer down with my thumb and bring up the slack from that loop and pull that tight just like so. Now I'll go ahead and do that on the other side. Pull up the slack from the loop, tighten that down so that you end up looking like this. Have to tighten that left side a little bit more, like so. And then to finish off that section, we will bring the strands back to the center, only this time we're going to go over the core strand and then back out, up through the loop you just made. And once again, tighten that down. And I will do the same on my left side. Sorry, my hands were in the way. We're going to go over the core strand, down through the middle, back out through the loop. Oops. Maybe. It's getting a little bit tangled here. I need to be careful. And pull that tight like so. That was probably hard to see. Oh well, I'll do it again in a second. End up looking like this. And you'll want to make sure the edges of your knots are about even with the edge of the washer. So again, if any of that was hard to see, I do apologize. This is the first time I've tried making a video like this. Okay, and we'll just repeat that same pattern. After we finished off that section, we're going to bring our strands under the core strand, come up, and don't totally close this loop up yet. Leave it loose, leave it open. We'll do the same thing on both sides. Go under the core strand, leave this loop open, and now we'll thread on another washer. And the way these washers are stamped out, they're more flat on one side, and then the edge has a slight curve or radius to it on the other side. So if you're worried about everything being symmetrical, like I am, then you'll want to make sure the same side is facing out each time. whether you want the flat or stamped side facing out. I usually just do the stamped side because why not? I don't know, why not? We will bring our strands up through the washer. Oops, maybe I should do this on camera where you can see it. Pull all our slack through. And once we have done that, again, make sure your strands are on the right side. Make sure your left and right strands aren't flipping around on you and coming out on the opposite side. Go down and out. Oops. Down and out through your loops. And be careful not to snag your cord on the edge of your desk like I was just doing. Same thing, both sides. Down, back to the outside. Oops. Back to the outside through your loops. I don't understand my own visuals, my own gestures. Oh well. And now, you see how these washers overlap on the completed bracelet. So make sure the edge of the second washer goes just underneath the edge of your first one, like so, to about there. Again, I'm going to hold this all in place with my thumb. Pull up my slack from the loop. Whoops. And just tighten it down. Same thing on the left side. Take up the slack. It's hard to do it on camera while I'm talking about it. Oh well. And again, just make sure it's close enough that your washers are overlapping, like so. And again, to finish off the section, we are now going to come over the core strand, back through the loop you just made. Tighten everything down and make sure the edge of your knot is about even with the edge of your washer, like so. Okay, same thing again on the left side. Over the core strand, whoops, over the core strand, but back out through the loop. Tighten everything down. And now I will do that one more time and a little bit faster and try to do it a little bit closer to the camera too, because I'm terrible at explaining things. I come up from underneath the core strand. So leave some slack, oops, leave some slack in this loop. And do the same thing on the left side. Underneath, the back up and out. Leaving some slack in this loop. And now we can put on our third washer. Again, making sure the stamp side is facing out, so where that edge is slightly radiused. Oops. Just thread that down. And now we'll take our right strand and go back out through that loop on the right. Same thing on the left side. Again, make sure there's a slight overlap. Whoops. Slight overlap to the washers. Pull pull the slack from your loop through, tighten it down. Same thing on the left side. Again, if my big dumb hands are in the way, I do apologize. Okay. And now to finish the section, come back over your core strand, back up through the loop, tighten down your loop to finish the section. Go back over the core strand, up and out through the loop, tighten it down. Just make sure your knots are even with the edge of the washer. And that is it. Just keep repeating that pattern till you get to the end, and then we can add our accent color. It's going to take me a while to do that. Luckily for you, you're watching this in a YouTube video, and through the magic of editing, we'll skip to the end. I'll show you how to tie the other Solomon knot, and then we will move on to the accent color. Okay, you can see here I have all my washers tied in place, and I'm almost to the end here. And it almost looks like I would have room for one more washer, but that's actually where our double Solomon knot is going to go. And I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the video. It's a single Solomon knot on this end, but so that we have a loop that will hold the end of our accent color in place here, we're going to have a double Solomon. So we will go, oops, we will go over like so, over with the right strand and under with the left. Come up and out the right side and just tighten everything down. Doesn't have to be too crazy tight, but tight enough that it sticks in place. And then we'll do the same thing, but now we'll go over with the left, under with the right, and come up through that loop. Tighten everything down. And then we'll actually take this off the jig so you can see how that closes up. Closes up the end of the bracelet. And eventually our accent color is going to come through right there, like so. The accent color is optional. You could stop here and leave just your base color in the washers if you wanted to, but honestly I think it looks cooler with the accent color. So now I'm going to cut and melt my ends here. Then we'll get ready to do the accent, and then we'll be all finished. Okay, so I have cut and melted my ends. Now we're ready to do the accent color. And again, I'm not sure if my piece of glow-in-the-dark cord is long enough that I'm going to have enough slack to be able to use the fids at the end, but we'll see. This is about a 1.5 foot section. Again, you'd probably do better to go with a 2 foot section, but this is all I got, so we'll see how it goes. So we're going to go back to the end where we started knotting from. We're going to flip this over, and you can see here on the completed one how that's just going to go underneath and come up right behind the cow's hitch knots there on the end. So on both ends we're going to go, knotted this pretty tight. You know what? Let me try to open this up a little bit from the other side first. There we go. Now I'll pull that through. I'll get ready to do the same thing on the other side. Let me just open this up a little bit first. Right there. That'll come up and through just underneath that cow's hitch nut. And I'm going to make sure these are as even as possible. So just like that, make sure there's no slack left. And now, one little important detail I want to show you is the overlap here. And the reason for that is if you don't overlap these and just go straight from here to here and then straight from here to here, the cord, the accent cord that is, the glow-in-the-dark cord, tends to roll underneath the edge of the washer and not stay on top of it like I want it to here. And then that's not going to be a problem on this end because of the way the accent color sort of tapers and the ends are held together as they go through the Solomon knot and come out the bottom there. It's not really an issue on this end, but on this end the ends were far enough apart that it was a little bit of a problem. So make sure if you're going to add an accent color to this that you overlap just like that. So this side is going to come up through here. You'll want to pull that through with your fids through every place where there's a loop holding a washer on. And we're going to do that on both sides. Really should get myself a knotter's tool for this to open up these loops. Oh well. Alright, so we will pull that through like so. And then our other side is going to overlap this one here. Yeah, the knotter's tool would do nicely for getting underneath these loops initially, but oh well. I can get by with just the fids for now. We're going to pull that through, take up all the slack, make sure it's not loose, like so. So we have our overlap, and now we'll just continue on through the loops all the way to the end where the Solomon knot is. And if you can see if you have trouble actually reaching into the loop with the fid, you can actually bend the bracelet and sort of move this washer out of the way here. And just go through and out like so. This glow-in-the-dark cord tends to be more rigid than your typical paracord, so it twists easily and wants to stay twisted even more so than regular cord, so watch out for twists, especially with the glow-in-the-dark cord. Same thing on this side. Oops. Same thing on this side. Go through the loop. Man, I should have bought a knotter's tool weeks ago. Oh well. Well, I try not to stab myself with my own fid. And just pull it all the way through. Oops. And watch out for twists. And once again, I'll just cut to the end here so you don't have to sit here through the whole long thing. We'll just keep going through each loop on either side of each washer. And then we'll finish on the back side of the Solomon knot at the end. Okay, so now I am at the end with my accent color. I ended up having just enough slack that I can use my fids to get through the Solomon knot here. So I'm going to go down, oops, down and through the center here. And again, if you can't get it through right away, just kind of work it around a little bit to open up the knot. We'll pull it out through the bottom. Make sure there's no slack. Make sure you pull everything tight. And we will do the same thing with our other side here. Always a little bit tighter going through with the second one. There we go. And there we have our finished bracelet. I've cut and melted the ends of my accent color. And when you first complete this, you can see it's pretty rigid, pretty stiff. So the first thing you'll want to do is kind of work it to free it up. And you can sort of determine how long you want to make this by how many washers you have in there. I have extremely skinny wrists, and so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 washers in mine. If I'm making enough room for 10 washers, tends to make it a perfect fit for my little skinny wrists. And then I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, I'll probably annotate it, when you first make your cow's hitch on your jig with your 2 core strands, you want to add, maybe about 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch of length for the sake of comfort. Again, this being as stiff and rigid as it is, if you go with exactly the diameter of your wrist, it can be a little bit too tight. So make sure to give yourself just a little bit of extra length for the sake of comfort and making sure it fits on your wrist right. And that is about all there is to it. This type of bracelet really doesn't have a name yet. I only just came up with it the other day. Again, it's really just a modified version of the Bored Paracord Hex Nut bracelet. What should we call this? I don't know. Overlapping washers kind of look like crescent moons, or almost like planets maybe. It reminds me of the planet Saturn. Why don't we call it the Saturn Paracord bracelet? Yeah, that seems like a good name. I just came up with it on camera. Yay, historical moment. That is about all there is to it. I really don't have an ending for this video. This is my very first paracord tutorial. If anything was unclear, or again, if my big dumb Sasquatch hands were in the way, I do apologize. If any of it was hard to follow, again, I will link to the Bored Paracord's original video for the Hex Nut Paracord bracelet. And this, other than being knotted differently at the ends to fit a larger buckle on mine, is basically the same as making the Hex Nut bracelet, just in a different style. We're using washers instead of hex nuts. So yeah, check out those links in the description. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Okay, just for fun, let's see if the camera will pick up these actually glowing. Don't know if this is going to work or not. Oh yeah. I don't want to brag, but that is pretty cool.